Well, hello everyone, it is Bedhead Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about vehicles that have a very strong potential of losing a massive amount of value over the course of the next few months. And so these are vehicles that you should potentially avoid with everything that they have going against them. Before we get in this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So I just made a video discussing the different car categories that will most likely lose a massive amount of value in the coming months because they are currently already taking a pretty big value hit on the used market. And this video is not just going to be a copy and paste of that video because I'm going to dive into specific cars within this video that I think are at a really high risk of losing a lot of value, which means that if you currently own one of these vehicles, well, chances are if you want to get out of it in the short term, you should probably do it sooner rather than later. And if you're planning on buying one of these cars, well, you're probably best to wait a little bit. And let's get into it. So the first few cars that I'm going to talk about are hot hatchbacks, and I want to talk about three specifically. So the new Honda Civic Type R, the new GR Corolla, and then the new Volkswagen Golf R. So all of these cars currently are selling for over MSRP brand new on average, and then they're also selling for over MSRP on the used market, or I shouldn't say selling, the asking prices for these vehicles in the used market are also over MSRP. And this is not what you usually see historically with these, quote unquote affordable hot hatches. What you usually see historically is that they will tend to sell for over MSRP brand new because, there's a lot of hype behind them. Any enthusiast-based car will have a similar situation happen. But on the used market, they will usually sell for around MSRP or even under MSRP. And so with these cars currently, having asking prices over MSRP used is most likely not going to be sustainable with the market that we are entering. Again, the used car market is correcting big time, and it's correcting towards a more normalized market. And so if we look at, again, hot hatches like that in a more normalized market, they don't sell for over MSRP used. And so what I'd have to say is, if you are super hyped about the car and want to get one, then yeah, you're going to have to pay over MSRP right now. But if you're patient and wait for the used market to kind of do what the used market needs to do, then you will most likely be able to do what people have been able to do historically with these cars, and that is pay around MSRP or even under MSRP once these cars have a few miles on them. And I'll use myself as an example. With the Ford Focus RS, that car was selling on average for $5,000 to $10,000 over MSRP on the new side of things. And then, once that car was used, it was selling for around MSRP if it was a relatively new low mileage car. But then, once you had a Focus RS that had some miles on it and, maybe was a couple years old, then it was selling for, a few thousand or even like $10,000 plus dollars under original MSRP. And so that was kind of like the price point to buy that car at, because you could still get a relatively new car and you're not going to be paying, again, a price premium over MSRP or even a price premium close to MSRP on the used market. So I'd be patient with hot hatches. Now, the next category that is somewhat dangerous, but I don't see as high of a risk as some other categories, is going to be hybrids. So in the prior video, I talked about how hybrids are the vehicles that are currently seeing the most demand compared to any other segment because, well, whenever you have an economy that goes into a recessionary period, people want affordable, economical transportation, and that's what hybrid vehicles provide. However, hybrid vehicles selling consistently for over MSRP new and for over MSRP used with the market we're going into, again, is not sustainable. Like, there's going to be a point where people are going to realize that by spending several $1,000s over MSRP for a hybrid, they're not really accomplishing the goal of actually saving money, because that's what they're supposed to be doing with a hybrid. And so this will, eventually most likely have some sort of correction that finally, corrects with the overall used car market. And so you could see a pretty big value hit where these hybrids go from selling for over MSRP on the used market to potentially selling for significantly under original MSRP. Once the hybrid buyers kind of come to their senses and realize that, oh, well, if I'm buying this hybrid to save money, then I probably shouldn't spend tons of money on the vehicle itself. So the next category of vehicles that I need to just quickly mention in this video as like a warning is anything that is fully electric. I just made a video talking about how Tesla just released a bunch of price cuts across their lineup, and this is obviously going to have a huge impact on the Tesla market. Like, Tesla wholesale values have already just like fallen off a cliff after the pricing reduction was released, but this is also going to put a lot of downward pressure on other EVs on the used market. So I would just be very patient if you're looking to buy an EV and wait for the dust to settle with the whole Tesla situation, with the wholesale values on the EV market in general. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath for dealerships and for, owners of EVs currently. Now, the next group of vehicles are some fun off-roaders. So the Jeep Wrangler, the Jeep Gladiator, and then the Ford Bronco. So starting with the Wrangler, Jeep has increased the prices on brand new Wranglers by a massive amount. Like a loaded up Rubicon, when I worked at the Dodge Ram Jeep store, was somewhere in like the $50,000 range, whereas now it's like over $70,000. And so you guys can probably do the math on this whole situation. Like, people are only going to pay so much for a used Wrangler, especially since, well, with this JL series, it hasn't changed that much since the 2018 model year. And so I wouldn't be shocked if we basically see, Wranglers that sticker for $70,000 brand new selling for somewhere in the $40,000, maybe even potentially into the $30,000 range on the used market, because that's just where it makes sense for a used Wrangler to be at a price point perspective. And frankly, new Wranglers should be closer to that range as well. Now, with the Gladiator, this is something that has already corrected a massive amount. All of the hype has died for the Jeep Gladiator, and so the wholesale values have already tanked a massive amount. If you go to any Jeep dealership, they'll have tons of Gladiators on their lot. They can't sell them new, they can't sell them used, and so that's just a vehicle that is already taking a massive hit. The Wrangler hasn't actually taken as much of a hit as the Gladiator yet. Could happen in the future, we'll just have to wait and see. But the Gladiator is pretty much faded as a fad, because people thought it was really cool when it was released because it's a Jeep truck, but now people are realizing that, well, if you want to do a ton of off-roading, then the Wrangler is going to be better for most people because it's a shorter vehicle, and so it's better at off-roading. And then if you actually want to do mid-size truck stuff, well, the Gladiator is really expensive compared to other mid-sized trucks, and so it's kind of in this weird place where it's too expensive and too impractical to be a good mid-sized truck, and then it's too big to be a great off-roader like the Wrangler. And then the last one in this category is the Ford Bronco. So Ford Broncos have been selling for over MSRP consistently since release, and this is something that is definitely not sustainable. So right now, you'll still see the used Broncos selling for over MSRP, but I would say, give it 6 to 12 months and they will be selling for closer to MSRP or potentially under MSRP. They'll probably be selling in a similar, fashion to what Wranglers used to do, where you basically would have the original MSRP of the vehicle and you could just take a few $1,000s off of that, and that's probably what a used one would go for with low mileage. And then once you add some mileage on, then it would sell for significantly less. And again, this is another vehicle where there's a ton of hype upon initial release, but now people are realizing what the Bronco's all about, and there's still a lot of hype behind it, but not nearly as much. And so the lack of hype is going to ultimately put a lot of downward pressure on that market. So for all the people that paid over MSRP in the Broncos, you're most likely about to lose a lot of money. Now, the next couple of vehicles are the Ford Raptor and the Ram TRX. The Ram TRX is already taking a huge value hit currently. Like, within the last few months, the wholesale values have plummeted by a massive amount, but it's not over, because again, you currently have Ram dealers that are willing to sell TRXs at invoice minus holdback minus more money on top of it. Like, they're literally losing money to sell these Ram TRXs. And so because they're selling them for so cheap, it's just putting tons of downward pressure on the used TRX market. And so what I see potentially happening is, with higher mileage TRXs that are 2021 model year trucks, they could be in the, from a literally retail sales perspective, price in the high 50s to low 60s range within the next few months. And then the lower mileage TRXs are probably going to be $70,000 trucks. The days of TRXs selling for anywhere around $90,000 to $100,000 used, pretty much long gone at this point. People will continue to ask those prices, but people aren't willing to pay them because you can buy a brand new one for cheaper at this point. Now, with the Gen 3 Raptor, it's a little bit of a mixed box. So with an EcoBoost Raptor, those trucks are about to most likely take a pretty big hit. And this is something that hurts me personally because, well, I currently own an EcoBoost Raptor. I got rid of my TRX in a timely manner, but the Raptor, I don't have any reason to get rid of it yet. But anyways, with the EcoBoost Raptor, there are more and more Ford dealers that are willing to do factory orders at MSRP. And so this is obviously eroding the over MSRP asking prices on the used market with the Raptors. They're still transacting over MSRP used, but more and more people are realizing that they can get a brand new one for MSRP. So this is going to kind of pull back. Now, I don't see Ford dealers offering, on a large scale Raptors at under MSRP, because Ford just doesn't have a lot of margin for dealers from invoice to MSRP in a lot of their vehicles like they used to. And so I think that the Raptor is definitely going to hold better than the Ram TRX. But I think that the best, or the thing that you should assume if you own a Gen 3 Raptor, is that your truck is most likely going to be worth under MSRP within the next few months in terms of the wholesale value and potentially even with the retail value. Now with the Raptor R, this is a pretty interesting situation, because right now there are a lot of Raptor Rs in the market that are basically having asking prices of like $150,000, $160,000. And the thing that I find pretty interesting is some people are biting, but not as many people as you would expect. And I think that it's just because of what the Raptor R is. Yes, it's a very exciting truck because of the powertrain it has and because of how low the production is going to be on that truck. But it ultimately is just a souped up Gen 3, and it looks so similar to the regular Gen 3 that I just don't think that people are willing to pay the prices that, dealers are asking, and then, what these, people that are flipping the trucks are asking. And so, with those $150,000, $160,000 asking prices, there will be some rich people that'll bite. But I see that market contracting pretty fast, and I don't think that those trucks are going to transact at MSRP anytime soon. But I think that it's pretty safe to assume that they'll be in the $5,000 to $10,000 over MSRP range in the near future. And then if, things get worse economically, that being a $100,000 gas guzzling pickup truck is not going to be appealing to, a large portion of people. And so you could see the used values slip under MSRP. We just have to see what happens long term. Again, it is a low enough production number vehicle that it could hold its value, but I think that it's a big risk if you pay over MSRP for one. So I guess this video went from most affordable to least affordable, and the last few vehicles I'm going to talk about are some Range Rovers and some Mercedes-Benz vehicles. So with Range Rovers, we've consistently seen that the new Defender, the new Range Rover Sport, and the new full-size Range Rover have been selling for over MSRP brand new and over MSRP used on average. That is pretty much disappearing, especially with the Defender, and it will soon start to happen with the Sport and with the full size, because you actually have a bunch of brand new Sports and full sizes that are getting delivered to dealers that people aren't taking delivery of. And that is like unheard of with what's happened with Range Rover the last couple of years, because there's been so much demand, and Range Rover has been especially hard hit with supply chain issues. Like, they are behind more than any other manufacturer when it comes to building vehicles. And so this just shows the demand pullback. So I wouldn't expect the full size to take as big of a hit as the other two initially, because the demographic that purchased the full size has enough money that, with what is happening in the economy, it might not really bother them anyways. But with those other two vehicles, you have enough people that will get hit hard enough in the economy that the values are going to decline at a pretty rapid rate. So I would just expect to experience normal Range Rover depreciation if you purchase a new Range Rover. Now, over on the Mercedes-Benz side of things, anything that is AMG is still most likely transacting over MSRP, especially if it has a 63 next to the AMG logo. However, similar to the Range Rover side of things, what we're most likely going to see in the coming months is that these vehicles on the used market are going to experience normal Mercedes-Benz depreciation, where they lose a massive amount of value. And it's one of those things where you pay a big price premium to buy one brand new because you're the first person buying it, and maybe it's a new release, and so you just want to feel special, but that's not going to translate into resale value. And then another Mercedes model that I want to talk about that has been talked about a lot with huge price premiums is the Mercedes G-Wagon. So there are still pretty big price premiums on these with the new market, and so used ones are still transacting for over MSRP in a lot of cases, and some of them are transacting for close to original MSRP even though they are older with some miles. This is starting to go away more and more with these vehicles because they've already had, like the G-Wagons have already had such huge value decline over the last year. I mean, G63s used were $300,000 cars at the beginning of 2022. And now in 2023, it's like a sub $200,000 vehicle. Like, that's a huge depreciation hit, but it's not quite over yet, because with all of these contractions we're seeing, you're going to start seeing some Mercedes dealers offering MSRP on, you know, vehicles like that, like probably not on a 63, but maybe on a G550. And so then the used market naturally is going to have to pull back to accommodate. And then you're going to see, you know, G-Wagons tend to hold their value better than other Mercedes models, but you're going to see, you know, a little bit more depreciation than what we've seen over the last few years. Okay, so this video ended up being way longer than I thought it would be. I guess that diving into each of the vehicles and everything takes a little bit more time, but hopefully this helps you out. And I do want to say that obviously I can't predict the future. I'm just looking at the current, you know, wholesale value trends I've seen with all of these different vehicles. And obviously the trends could, you know, change overnight. Like that stuff does happen within the car market. However, I think that with everything that I've said in the video, it's pretty safe to assume that I wouldn't say that these vehicles are the worst thing ever if you purchase them, but if you're paying a price premium over MSRP on any of these vehicles with the current market conditions, just go in with the expectation that any amount of money that you pay over MSRP for these vehicles is just going to be gone when it comes to selling the vehicle. And I think that that's just the expectation you should have in general if you pay over MSRP for a vehicle, because you're ultimately paying into market hype, because the manufacturer has said that that's what the vehicle should be selling for, and the market is saying that, oh no, it should be selling for more, and the only reason why it's selling for more is because the market's hyped up about that vehicle. Once the hype dies, the over MSRP price dies with it. And so just always have that in the back of your mind if you're looking to buy one of these vehicles, whether it's, you know, an affordable hybrid or something special like a Ford Raptor R. That's going to sum things up. I'll see ya.